If you already own a home and you're thinking about buying your next one, you're not dealing with just one transaction, you're dealing with two, and they don't always cooperate with each other. Most people in this situation have questions like,
Do I sell first? Do I buy first?
what if I can't find anything before my house sells?
What if I end up homeless between closings?
All of these things are real concerns, and we'll get to that. But before any of that can happen, you need to understand the buying process itself, because if you haven't bought in a while, or if you've never done it as someone who already owns a home, some of this might surprise you. I'm Mia. I'm a real estate agent in Pierce County, and I've moved over a dozen times in my life, and I'm a home buyer and investor. So I know this process from both sides. So let's walk through how the home buying actually works in Washington state, starting with the step that most people underestimate. They do. Real quick, if you're the kind of person who does their research before making a huge decision, you're going to like this channel. I put out videos about buying, selling, and honestly just living in the South Sound, Pierce County, Tacoma, Fife, the whole area. So if any of this is relevant to you, subscribe. Also, I made a free PDF guide that covers a lot of what I'm about to talk about, plus the Washington State down payment assistance programs that most people don't know exist. So the link for that is in the description. Just save it if you want a reference for it later. Okay, let's actually get into this. The very first thing you need to do before you take a look at a single house, I mean, before you even open Zillow, is get pre-approved for a mortgage. Not pre-qualified, pre-approved. Those two sound very similar, like maybe same thing. They are not. Pre-qualification is basically just someone doing math based on what you told them. You say, I make this much, I have this much saved. And they say, sounds like you could probably afford this. And that's it. No one looked at anything. The number means almost nothing to a seller. You could Google it. Like it's based in dreams and wishes. Pre-approval is different. The lender actually pulls your credit, verifies your income, looks at your bank statements, and says, we have reviewed this person's actual financial picture, and we're willing to lend them this amount. And that's a document that sellers take seriously, and that's what you need. Here's why it matters practically in a competitive market. And depending on where you are in Pierce County, it can still be competitive, very competitive. And sellers often won't review an offer that doesn't come in with a pre-approval letter. You could find the perfect house, fall completely in love with it, and never get to make an offer because you didn't have that little piece of paper. Pre-approval also tells you what you can actually afford, which is often different from what you think you can afford. I've seen people walk into this process assuming they'd qualify for $450,000 and come out pre-approved for $380, $350, some other amount. Better to know that before you spend 3 weekends touring homes at the completely wrong price point. So who should you get pre-approved with? A good local lender or VA approved or FHA, whatever type of loan you're going for. I'll always give you a referral if you need one. I also work with some great people who actually know Washington state market and take their time explaining things to first-time buyers. They love first-time buyers. And anyone else, not just them. Okay, I want to talk about something that freaks a lot of people out, and I'd rather have you hear it from me now than be blindsided by it later. When a lender pulls your credit for a mortgage pre-approval, it shows up on your credit report. This is called a hard inquiry, and yes, it will cause a small, temporary dip in your credit score. I know, that feels counterintuitive. You're trying to buy a house, not hurt your credit, but here's the actual reality of what happens. First, the drop is usually small. We're talking somewhere between 5 and 10 points, not 50 points. So if your score was 720 before, it's not going to drop to 670 or 600 because a lender checked your credit. Second, it's temporary. Hard inquiries fall off your credit report and stop impacting it after about a year, and the impact diminishes way before that. It just pew, 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 pew. Third, if you're shopping multiple lenders, which is smart, the credit bureaus know you're rate shopping. So if you have multiple mortgage inquiries within a short window, usually like 14 to 45 days, depending on the score model, you'll have to check with them for sure. They're typically treated as a single inquiry. So don't avoid comparison shopping because you're afraid of hurting your credit score. What actually does hurt your credit? Opening new credit cards right before you apply, making a big purchase on a credit like a car or furniture, closing old accounts, or missing any payments. Those things can really, really derail a loan approval. Mortgage pre-approval inquiry done right and just at the right time is just kind of the cost of doing business, as it were. One more thing, don't apply for pre-approval 6 months before you're actually ready to buy. The letter typically expires in 90 days. So get pre-approved when you're actually ready to start looking. Otherwise, you'll have to do it again after that 90-day window. Just heads up. You've been on Zillow. I know you have. Everyone has. And those sites aren't bad. They're a really great place to get sort of a general overview of what homes look like and what neighborhoods feel like. But here's what I need you to understand about how home searches actually work. So sites like Zillow are not the MLS. The MLS, Multiple Listing Service, is the actual database where agents put the homes to list them. So Zillow pulls from it, but there's a delay. And in a hot market, the time a listing can take to show up on Zillow, it can already have offers on it, sometimes multiple offers. And the listing could look active when it's not actually active. So your agent has direct real-time access to this MLS, and that's one of the most concrete reasons to work with one, not just to open doors, but to see things when they actually hit the market, not 24 hours or 48 hours later. They can also tell you about things that are coming up if they're able to. How the actual search works, once you're pre-approved and you've had a conversation with your agent about what you are looking for, your agent sets up an automatic search that sends you listings as soon as they go active. Soon as they're active, and then you review them, and the ones that you feel right, you can schedule showings for them. It's pretty simple. And what you should actually be looking for in a house, and I don't mean countertops and paint colors, although those are very fun and we love them. Layout and flow. Can you actually live in this space? Will your custom couch fit? Bring a tape measure. A great number of square footage means nothing if the bedrooms are in a super weird configuration or if the kitchen faces a direction that makes it feel like a cave. Things that cost real money to change: roof condition, HVAC age, foundation, water heater. Those aren't cosmetic. Those are the things that can and will surprise you 6 months in with a $12,000 bill.
Ask me how I know.
Good agents will point these out, and your inspector will go even deeper. The neighborhood at different times. A house can look completely different at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday than it does at 6 p.m. on a Friday. If you're serious about a property, drive by it at different times before you make an offer, especially traffic times or school times. The commute from that address to where you actually need to be. Not Google Maps at 2 p.m., unless that's when you'll be driving. Do look at your actual commute times. You can't fall in love with a house and then realize that your commute to base or work is 20 minutes or an hour longer than you thought it might be. And take close care to note the proximity to things that matter to your daily life: your grocery store, your gym, your places that make up the texture of your actual day. A house that scores high on a checklist but requires a 30-minute drive for milk gets old very fast. Listing photos are taken at the best possible time of day with the best possible light with a wide angle lens. And while they are legally accurate, they are emotionally misleading sometimes. A backyard that looks spacious in photos can feel like a postage stamp in person. And a quiet street can be 50 feet from a highway on-ramp. Walk the block. Introduce yourself to a neighbor if you can. I love hosting open houses because neighbors stop by. Talk to them. Look at the condition of surrounding properties, not to judge them, because we want to see what the upkeep of the neighborhood is. It tells you something about how the people who live there feel about living there. One thing to keep in mind is that your mortgage payment is not your housing cost. Property taxes, homeowners insurance, HOA fees if applicable, utilities, and maintenance, those are all on top. A general rule of thumb is to budget around 1% of your home's value per year for maintenance. So on a $400,000 house, that is $4,000 a year. Not every house is going to be like that every year, but some years are better, some are worse. Find out about utility costs. Ask about HOA financials if there is one, especially whether the reserves are funded. An HOA with depleted reserves could be a future special assessment waiting to happen. Okay, so this section is for anyone who isn't 100% sure that they're planting forever roots. When you're looking at a home, try to think about it from future buyers' perspective. Unusual floor plans, specific design choices, or features that are hyper personal can narrow your future buyer pool. The more broadly appealing a home is, the easier it is to sell. This also means that location details matter quite a bit. A home near a main road, under a flight path, or next to a commercial property may be priced lower, but it can also be hard to sell later. That's not to say that your home should always be listing ready. Use the wallpaper, paint the bright colors, live in your home, especially if this is your forever home. And here's another thing that almost nobody warns you about: Losing a house that you fell in love with to another offer is genuinely upsetting. It can feel like a breakup. And the temptation after that happens is to make an emotional, reactive decision on the next one, like a rebound. Offer too high, waive things you shouldn't waive just so you can win. I'm not saying don't feel it. Feel it. And then when you're ready, get strategic again. The right house exists. Your job is not to make a bad decision in reaction to losing a house that wasn't actually yours yet. So, some questions that you might forget to be asking. Why is the seller selling? Not that they owe you an answer, but sometimes it's informative. A job relocation is different from we couldn't stand the neighbors or the HOA is a nightmare. Not that anyone would actually say that part out loud, but another talking point, reason to talk to the neighbors. Heck, you know what? I'll go talk to the neighbors if you're too afraid to do it. Just let me know your questions. I would be super happy to go do that. So, how long has a house been on the market? Why is it on the market? A house that's been sitting has usually been sitting for a reason. Sometimes it's obvious it's priced wrong, or sometimes it's a issue. But always ask. Always ask. Do your detective work. Be a Columbo or a Jessica Fletcher. If maybe I'm dating myself with that, but always ask the questions. What stays and what goes? Appliances, light fixtures, TV mount the seller's built into the wall. And these things are automatically included unless they're in the contract. And you just need to make sure that you ask before you assume. Okay, you found something you love, you want to make an offer. Here's what that actually looks like. So your agent writes a purchase and sale agreement. That's the formal offer. It includes the price you're offering, the earnest money amount, the closing date you're proposing, and any contingencies. Earnest money is essentially a good faith deposit. It says, I'm serious about this. In Washington, earnest money is typically 1 to 3% of the purchase price, so it varies. There's not a required amount. If the sale goes through, that amount applies towards either your down payment or your closing costs. And if you back out for a reason that's covered by a contingency, you get that money back. If you back out for no valid reason, you may lose it. So don't put in more than you're willing to risk. And on that note, contingencies are your protection. The most common contingencies are the inspection contingency. This gives you the right to have the home professionally inspected and either negotiate repairs, ask for a price reduction, or completely walk away based on what the inspector finds. The financing contingency. This protects you if your loan falls through for a legitimate reason. The appraisal contingency. If the home appraises for less than the offer price, this gives you options. You can renegotiate, make up the difference in cash, or just walk away. Because remember, we didn't fall in love with the house yet. In a competitive market, buyers sometimes waive contingencies to make their offer more attractive. And that can make sense in certain situations, but it also carries real risk. Your agent should walk you through what's appropriate given the specific property and market conditions. Once your offer is accepted, you're under contract. That kicks off a defined timeline: inspections, appraisal, final loan approval. In Washington, the inspection period is negotiated in the contract, often around 10 days. That varies. Use it. Do not skip the inspection to save a few $100s. It could cost you thousands. And the inspection is not just for finding problems, it's for understanding more completely what you're buying. A good inspector will walk you through the house and tell you everything, how everything works, what needs attention now, and what to watch over the next few years. That information is worth every penny, even if the house is in great shape. Once your past inspections and your contingencies are resolved, you're in the home stretch. And here's what the last few weeks before closing typically look like. Your lender will order an appraisal, an independent valuation of the home to make sure the bank isn't lending you more than the property is worth. You don't control this. You don't attend this. And you typically wait around a week for results. It just depends on how backlogged they are. And while that's happening, your loan is going through underwriting. Basically, the lending team's doing a final detailed review of your finances before they fully commit to the loan. They may ask for additional documents. That's super normal. Just respond quickly and don't let it stress you out. And then about 3 business days before closing, you'll receive a closing disclosure, a document that lays out the exact numbers, your final loan amount, the interest rate, monthly payment, and all the closing costs. So be sure to read that very carefully. Ask all the questions if anything looks different from what you expected or you're not really sure what something fully means. Before closing, you'll do a final walkthrough of the house, usually about a day before, within 24 hours. And this is your chance to confirm that the house is in the condition that you agreed to, that the agreed upon repairs were completed, and that nothing has changed since you last saw it. Closing itself in Washington, it's typically done at a title company. You'll sign a significant stack of documents, wire your closing funds if you haven't already, and then you get keys, and that's it. That's the day. In Washington, closing typically takes 30 to 45 days from the accepted offer, though it can move faster with a motivated seller and a very clean transaction. VA loans can sometimes run a little longer due to VA appraisal process. You would want to budget 45 days just to be safe. If you're buying in Pierce County or you're thinking about it, that's my whole world. I work with first time buyers, next time buyers, investors, and people who are figuring this out for the first time and just want someone who will actually think ahead for them or who has been through this before. The free guide that I mentioned at the beginning of the video covers all of the Washington State down payment assistance programs, including Home Advantage and some Pierce County specific options, plus a VA loan checklist if that's relevant to you. It's in the description, it's free, and I'll update it as things change or I'm made aware that things have changed. If you have any questions, my DMs are wide open. I'd rather have you ask something than just like wonder about it. And if you're actually ready to start the process, reach out. I'll send you a no pressure checklist to figure out where you are and what the right next steps look like for you specifically. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.